Welcome to the Tearsheet podcast. I'm Rabab Essen, Head of Creative and Content Strategy here at Tearsheet. Look, every bank says it wants to be data-driven. However, fewer can tell you what that actually looks like on the inside. Who owns the what, who owns the how, and what happens in the space between them. Today, I am joined by two leaders from Bank of America who live in that space every day. First, we have Michelle Boston, who is Head of Data Management Technology and Enterprise Architecture. She builds the platforms and the pipelines and the guardrails that make data usable at scale. And then we have Amy Avery, who's Managing Director of Analytics, Modeling, and Insights. She and her team turned that data into a real understanding of what customers are thinking, feeling, and doing. Together, they're the engine behind how a bank serving tens of millions of clients turns raw information into decisions. We'll talk about what changed the day generative AI walked into the industry, whether innovation and trust are a trade-off. We'll also get into the personal side, what it felt like walking into the bank on day one, and how two very different career paths ended up as one of the tightest partnerships in that building. Thank you for tuning in, and let's get into it. Michelle and Amy. Michelle, I've had the opportunity to talk to you before. Amy, not so much. And before we get into the nitty-gritty of, data and insights and how those two come together, I wanted to talk about both of you as professionals and what it felt like to come into the bank on that first day. Tell me a little bit about that day and what's changed since then. I know it's different timelines for the both of you, so I'm interested in finding out.
Yeah, I'm happy to go first. I've been here about 6 years, and I came right before COVID started. So I came in January of 2020, and I came in. The reason I actually took the job was the amount of data we have. I was interviewing, and I was like, these people all seem pretty nice. This could be an interesting job. But someone started talking to me about, right, we understand 60 million clients, or 67 at the time, now 70. We have so much information. How do I think about that? And I was like, gosh, that's so much information. Think about what you could do with that, like how we could protect it, how you could help people, how I could better people's lives, how I could help them make better decisions. It was so exciting to think about. So it is actually the reason I took the job. And I think because it was COVID, probably not at all what I expected, but was able to come in and realize information was the thing we needed most at the time. We needed to understand how our customers were, what they were thinking, what they were feeling, what they were doing. And what a perfect time to come in to a job like this, where you're in charge of insights and using data to help people. Because it's exactly what I got to do when I arrived here. So it was amazing because I got to use all of the data that I had heard about to help clients and communities, but also an incredible opportunity to get to know the power of the bank. And how we could all work together to be able to do things like that for them. So it was an incredible journey to start. And I think since then I've gotten to meet people and partner with people like Michelle that make it unstoppable, really. Being able to serve our clients with a partnership like this has been incredible because you have, right, what do we need to know to be able to do that? And how are we actually going to be able to do that paired side by side in a way that I've never experienced in my entire career. So it's the partnership here is incredible would probably be the simple word I'd use for it.
Michelle, your turn.
Yeah, for me, little different journey. I was in technology really my whole career and had kind of risen to be a director and ended up working as a CIO of a startup. So at startup, we grew and built and sold. And I came in actually originally as a contractor, believe it or not, like many come in to do contract work for the bank to lead an information architecture practice. And then from there took, a senior role running that information architecture team. So data has always kind of been in my blood in terms of data analytics, data strategy. And it's a great place to be at the bank because Amy talked about the massive scale and scope of data, but we're very purpose-driven in how we build technology and how we build software and the value of it, either to our clients or to our associates or to the user experience. So Amy is the business side of defining what good looks like. What are we trying to achieve with the technology? And then I have the pleasure of working with a large group as a CIO, delivering the platforms, the scalability, and really unlocking the power of data with Amy.
Those are interesting answers, and I know the timelines are very different. So one of the things I wanted to know was, from that first day to today, what's one thing that you think has definitely changed in how you do work or how you think about the work that you do? Amy, you first.
Wow, I was trying to narrow that down to one thing. In a massive changing technology landscape, gosh, everything. I think probably that, right? The options we have on how to do things are changing daily. And being able, again, partnership critical, because what I can accomplish is much greater, much faster now, thanks to all the technology changes. And having a partner like Michelle to be able to help navigate those, to say, here's a problem I want to solve. How do we do this? How do I leverage that? I think that's been the biggest change so far. Michelle, I don't know if there's a million answers there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the pace of technology change has accelerated so much. I think that's really what strikes me in this world of data velocity, but also AI. We talk about AI velocity, just the speed at which the technology is evolving, both from the opportunity to take advantage of that technology for our business and for our clients, and internally for our back office and associates. But also with that comes this enormous responsibility of controls, guardrails. How do we think about responsible use? Are we picking the right technology for the job among all the technologies we could pick to achieve an outcome? That's become so much more complex than it probably was, 10 years ago.
To double click on that, you've said that it's become more complex. So as professionals and almost at the helm of where this industry is going there, do you feel the challenge of doing your job really well every day has also expanded, or the remit of it has expanded by a lot?
For
Absolutely.
me, I'll start, Amy,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you have the same experience. I'm almost back in school. So I probably study some form of reading, podcast, some form of education on a daily basis. I probably 45 minutes to an hour. So I have my work day and I have my commute with a podcast. And then I have reading or articles or specific analysis in the evening. It's very different than probably 24 months ago, because that is the pace at which I have to make decisions every day, and our team has to make decisions. And it's our job as CIOs and leaders to see around the corner, right? For the strategic value of what we're doing, for things that we should build enterprise or think differently about, but also what are the risks and how do we get ahead of the risks of those technologies? And so for me, much like a doctor has to do continuous training, we have to do continuous training as leaders to guide our organizations and guide our businesses like Amy's.
I think really well said. I'd add to it, there's also the teaching side of it. Because the hardest thing is, right, you have a very complex job to do. We're learning every day all kinds of new risks to think about, but also we're teaching along the way. We have to change culture so that people are ready for change. We have to educate other leaders who aren't as in depth in what we do on kind of what the barriers are and how to be able to do it. So I think it's, there's not just the getting the job done, which is getting harder, but there is the personal time to learn. There's the personal time to train and teach others. And there's, right, just that, how do you build a culture that works so differently and works so cohesively, I think is really a lot of time, right? It's really important to, I think, both of us as leaders to make sure that our teams 100% understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it. And that takes a whole lot of time as well.
I mean, I this is a good spin on how I used to think about it. I mean, we always know that managers or executives at higher levels are generally leaders, but also to be instructors cross-functionally, that's something that is evolving and probably a very different space to step into. Both of you mentioned your teams, and I'm wondering, could you take me through exactly the remit of your team individually and then how those two come together? Amy, I think we've established that you go first most of the time. So do you want to go first?
Sure. I lead a team called Analytics, Modeling, and Insights. And we partner with all 8 lines of business, plus support functions across the bank. And our job is helping them figure out how to use data to make better decisions. And so if you think about that, the front of that is a strategy team that really says, how does data help you solve a problem? Behind that sits analytics teams. So how do you think about how do you do deep dives? How do you really understand client behavior? There are modeling teams. How do we predict and anticipate someone's needs so that we can help them better? There is a reporting team. How do we keep really close to the business and understand what's happening and what's moving? And right, do we need to tweak something to make a better client experience? There's a research team so that as we roll out a new product, we're able to ask our clients and get feedback and understand what they need so that we're able to serve them in a better way. And then there's the front end of data, my data enablement team, which partners really closely with Michelle's team to be able to think about what data we're going to need help with. What is the problem we're going to pass on to Michelle to be able to, on the back end, figure out all of the harder parts, which is right, all the technology and how do we do all of that? So a pretty comprehensive team. I'd say in a short sentence, I would say we're here to help understand what our clients are thinking, feeling, and doing. And we're focused on using data to do that, partnered with Michelle to make it possible.
Brilliant.
For me, I really pick up where Amy left off, right? So we have groups like Amy's that are really leading the way with strategy and enabling data. My role as CIO of data management and enterprise architecture is to actually aggregate that demand across all the lines of business and control functions, right? So we are looking at data management capabilities. We are looking at data analytic platforms and building out and delivering those platforms at scale for the bank. We're looking at data protection and privacy capabilities. How do we ensure the most valuable, sensitive data we have for our customers and clients and the trust they place with us is secured everywhere we have it across all of our systems in the bank? So I really deliver the scale and platforms that enable a business like Amy. And Amy brings the talent and the vision to adopt those platforms to deliver for our customers and clients.
I understand that there is a very specific pipeline or a handoff almost that the bank and also like these two teams depend upon. So there is synergy. To just enlighten me further, is there a specific use case that you can help me, that you can give me that will help me understand how this actually gets practiced and what use cases emerge from this partnership?
I think a lot of them. If I think about how we give information to our leaders, right, that's probably the biggest one. Everyone needs information instantly to make decisions, right? And that could be, I look at our head of digital. She needs to understand, are people navigating through? She's launched a new component on the website, a new experience. She needs to understand how it's working. I need to think about what is the way that I can most quickly help her not only have access to that information, but how can I do that in a meaningful way that I can combine different pieces of information to say, hey, it looks like maybe people of one group are really struggling at this part in the experience, and people of another group are actually in a whole different space struggling, or where are they thriving? Where are they passing through? Are we not getting people through a certain process? And they need to understand that, but they need to understand it quickly. They need to understand the full context of it so they know how to go solve it. So I think that's one. I think another is, right, everyone talks about AI. It would be hard to avoid that, but it is, right? I think there's an assumption that you can just toss AI on top of your data and voila, you can ask a question and all of your answers will be possible. Michelle and I both know that is almost impossible. And so there is I think the other use case is figuring out what would it take for that to be possible, and what scenario would we do that? How would we do that? How would we do that safely? So I think, a small use case of how do I answer someone and give them information to make a real-time quick decision. But also this bigger ask out there of how do I enable people in a future that I can see coming, but we don't yet aren't yet prepared to be able to do it.
Yeah, and I always think of in terms of what and how. Amy's job is really to envision the what. What is Brian and the management team need to effectively run the company? What tools, what capabilities, how do they interact with data, and how does Amy deliver that? And I'm kind of the how, right? So Amy has the what. I help with the how, what technologies, what platforms, how do we scale them to be performant? How do we ensure the data is high quality and fit for the purposes that Amy needs it for? And then how do we really enable it with the right sets of technology? Because I think in this world, and we talked about this a little bit, in the world where everything looks easy and everything's changing fast, we all know as software engineers or development teams, you really have to deeply understand the problem and apply the right sets of capabilities to address those problems. One, we talk all the time about, like, for example, in the AI world, those chats and everybody interacting, whether it's Copilot or OpenAI or something on your phone, you're learning about the art of the possible, but applying the art of the possible to a company like Bank of America at the level of quality and accuracy and completeness and reliability that is needed, it's not as simple as that chat. We're going to decompose that technology and we're going to ensure it's built right. It's built with quality, it's built with controls, it's built with governance, and it can stand up to really the high level of expectation of software development that Brian and team have for all of us.
Right. And you put it beautifully, the both of you, the what and the how. I imagine both of those questions got impacted a couple of years ago when we had a certain technology enter the market. So was it an immediate go back to talk to each other about how this is changing, and how has that technologies, and I'm saying that because we all know which technology this is, how has it changed what you're doing right now?
I think we would both say we've seen this coming a long time, right? I think from the day we met, we have been on a journey to make sure, and long before I was here, Michelle was doing this, right? What is the journey that we need to be on to make sure that our data is ready for the future? Mm-hmm. How do we secure it? How do we structure it? How do we prepare it? You could see it coming. You could see it coming. Exactly what the version is, no, probably beyond anyone's wildest dreams. But the concept of where we are today was not surprising. So it's been a multi-year journey to get here. I think for us, it was, when do you use it, right? It's like any other tool. It's a tool. When is it appropriate to use that tool? When is it safe to use that tool? And kind of thinking through, what is our highest priority? Where are our biggest pain points? Where would it be an appropriate solution? We spend a lot of time together. I would say Michelle and I probably know each other's jobs better due to that shift than we did before, because we have to stay hand in hand, right? We're exploring a new place that we've been preparing for, but we're still exploring. And we stay really tight in terms of when do we use that? How do we use that? And going back and forth on those two questions a whole lot.
I've heard,
I think,
I'm sorry. I've heard this often where Bank of America goes slow to go fast. And is that something that's a part of how you're thinking about this technology?
No, for sure. Well, I mean, and in some ways, I think it's funny. We've been using AI for over a decade, really machine learning, anomaly detection, even in analytics and several use cases across the bank, right? To enhance client experience, to improve productivity, to really strengthen our operations teams or optimize performance. So AI is not new to us. I think the kind of opportunity that generative AI offered was something we had to look at. And I love it. You say go slow to go fast. Our team always talks about disciplined velocity, right? Because I own a horizontal enterprise architecture function that ensures that we understand the architectures and the stacks on which we're building these technologies very, very well, so that they can scale to meet the needs of our customers and clients. And I think what really, really changed was, how do we safely do proof of concepts that let us understand what the technology does well and what the limitations of the technology are. Those proof of concepts also let us deeply understand new controls and guardrails we needed to build around AI, generative AI, that were not controls that we had to implement before. And then we built those governance and control frameworks off those POCs and said, okay, now we understand the technology. Now we understand the risks. Now we have mitigating controls that we've defined. Now we can go fast. And so I think we're in the catch-up era because we're not having to look at and react and have let things go out of the gate so quickly that we're having to pull them back. We've just marched in a steady, very well controlled and very organized state. And we built some great enterprise platforms out of that process that we can now scale for all lines of business.
Right. And I understand that approach. And I think it was very much needed at the time when the technology came out specifically as well. It does seem in my line of work sometimes that AI is a very new word that came out just 3 years ago and it never existed before. But it's not true. And a lot of organizations do have protocols within their architecture to deal with such change. I do think there is sometimes that you could blame the media for it or the technologists sometimes, that there is a trade-off that's put to us. There is privacy or security and speed that are presented to us. And every time I speak to a technologist, it turns out that in practice, the trade-off is a bit thinner than we think, that it is in practice. I was thinking of going one step ahead. Do you think innovation and trust are trade-offs at all? And is there a way to put them in the same boat and go forward? So not privacy and security, but innovation and trust specifically.
The trust of our clients, and right, we track it. We have to know that is critical to our success, right? If they don't trust us with how we're innovating, they're not going to trust us with their financial lives. And that has to be the thing that drives our decision. So I think what makes it easy in that trade-off decision is our true north has not changed at all. Making sure that they trust us with their financial lives, right? That is the most important thing. And that trust has to permeate every single decision we make. So I think that makes it easy to decide. To your point, sometimes that margin is small. And I think that's where we have to be really careful. And to Michelle's point, that proof of concept thing really helped because we were able to look at something to be like, if I'm not willing to push on the one side, right? I'm not willing to compromise on the trust. To your point, how much benefit will I gain? There are some use cases that we have tried and we were like, that is not worth the squeeze because if I can't budget all in my trust, then I won't get enough out of this for the effort. There are others that are really paying off. And that proof of concept really helped us figure out which spaces those were. Sometimes we did it, we finished and we were like, we did it. It works. We held our principles in terms of trust and all of the other things that really matter, but it wasn't enough of a benefit for all that work that it took. There are others where it is incredibly helpful. I think where I see companies failing in that is where you don't do that slow step into it. You don't have your principles outlined. You don't have a way to measure it, right? When we have all of these proof of concepts, we're looking at how did this save us in terms of risk? How did this save us in terms of efficiency? How did this help in terms of helping clients? And we have all of those metrics in place. So every proof of concept we're doing, we're looking at really closely to say, does it meet those? I talk to a lot of peers and I think where people find that thin margin where they find it a little bit too late is when they don't know what the principles are and they don't know what those metrics are to be able to really quickly spot it. But it's a challenge for sure. You've got to watch that closely.
I mean, look, we start almost every meeting with a responsible growth placemat, right? Grow within a sustainable manner, grow no excuses, but grow within our risk framework. And I think that really anchors us, and our customers' trust is so important to us that we're not going to let innovation run ahead of that trust. And I think it's in some ways it's a huge relief to be in an organization like that among a sea of companies and software development organizations who are chasing the pressure to innovate. I think Brian said in one analyst call, I think last year, he said, we don't just invest in technology, we invest in technology that works. And I love that because we are very methodical about how we approach that innovation. And now we've pretty much caught up to peers who might have been ahead of us. I mean, we all talk to our peers in financial services, and we feel really good about what we've delivered, and that the use cases we've delivered, over 30 use cases, major in terms of generative AI capabilities for our associates, for clients, and you see those in the news like Erica Assist, or the Erica for employees, or Cash Pro. Those capabilities work, and they're benefiting the communities using them. And we're getting real scale, scope, taking toil out of processes and making it easier for our clients to do business with us. And so I'm okay going a little slower to have those kinds of results.
That's a solid answer, and a solid stance to have as well. 2 years ago, Michelle, you said to me, and that was more advice for female professionals, but you said that one shouldn't just do the work, you should represent the value of the work. And I was thinking, as I was preparing for this interview today, how do you, when the year ends, and I think year is the wrong time to speak upon because Bank of America plans for years. So when multiple deployments have gone through, multiple projects have gone through, when do you two sit with those deployments and say, yeah, this is the value that I was looking for as a professional to come out of this? What is that value that you search for?
I like we both always pause. You go first this time, Michelle. You get a turn.
Look,
I always take it.
I think, embedded in the discipline of our technology enablement process, and Amy and I just lived this together. So we're doing a significant analytics and AI enabled project right now. We build business cases, and those business cases have return on investment tied to them. Now, the return on investment can take many forms, right? It can be we are more efficient and we get employee productivity. It can be we drive revenue generation. It can be we improve the client experience. It can be we reduce risk and take risk out of our operations or the organization. It can be any of those things or a combination of them. But when we sit down and invest in a multi-year project, we are very clear, and Amy and I built a business case and delivered one together to say, we know this is good for the enterprise. We're going to deliver the technology side. Amy's going to deliver the business enabling side, and we are going to track the achievement of that return on investment over time. And then we're going to build the next case and the next case. And so many times, a 10-year strategy is actually a series of 2 or 3 year significant projects that just keep moving the dial in a significant way, all with a vision of kind of what good looks like at the end. And you calibrate and you change some of those out year projects based on what you learned in the earlier year projects. But it's a process. And we couldn't do it without good business partners because tech sits and understands the technology, but we don't understand how the business needs to apply it or what pressures they're facing to deliver and how we need to help. So it's great having a partner who's a visionary and brings the work to us, and we're happy to deliver together.
I think we found a really nice balance in that space of how do we have short-term wins and how do we have long-term wins, right? The business has immense need, all businesses do, and being able to understand those and say, how do I think creatively? And that's where Michelle and I spend a lot of our time up front to say, what can I give them today that's going to work while I'm evolving what is tomorrow's version, so that they can get the progress that they need and the information they need in a way that's helpful, but also we can get to what they ultimately want. Because it's really hard to go back to a partner and say, I will have that for you in several years. Nobody likes that answer. It turns out it's very frowned upon. But I think Michelle's been such a great partner in helping us figure out, what can I give today? What is the short win and what is the midterm win and what is the long-term win? And how do we run all of those rails at the same time to be able to make sure that we can make the change we want effectively? So I think that's so critical. Is it's never just one project. Like every project, typically those big ones, that's to Michelle's point, there's multiple to get there and there's multiple to make sure that we get there and people feel progress while we do it.
I understand. And originally, my last question, I had planned for it to be separate. But seeing the rapport, I think it's important that I change the question now. And so if we were to zoom out or look through the oracle, again, pun intended, and see 10 years ahead, what would happen for this team that you're very excited about?
I think what wakes us all up every day is the ability to help clients. It's the work we do is interesting, right? And the world we're living in is massive technology. I think when I look 10 years out, the things we'll be able to do to help our clients, if I just look at the pace of change, the things I can do a year from now are going to be incredible. But when you think about the information they're willing to give us over time as we're helping them, and how does that evolve the decisions they can make, and how do we get to a place where that feels very fluid, right? Today, that version is, right, I can log into my website or my app and I can see that. I think in the future, that takes a whole other set of platforms where they may interact with us, where it is even more seamless than we make it today. And I think figuring out what those platforms are, what are the places we want to meet them, and how do we do that safely and seamlessly for them, I think is what gets us all coming here every day, because I suspect we won't be in the same set of platforms we have today at all.
Is it and keep me honest here, is it the closeness between intention of the client and the delivery of Bank of America that excites you, and the way we do that?
I think so. It gives us, we pride ourselves in our team on really understanding our clients, which makes us, the whole goal of that is so that we can better serve them. And the more we can do that, the better things we can do. We'll understand the shifts as they're doing them, right? As their life is changing and the way they interact with technology changes, so too should ours. Yeah. And thinking about kind of detecting when that shift is happening and being ready for that, I think is so exciting in terms of how we do that. And then doing that in that kind of surprise and delight way that they're like, they understood me. They understood what I needed before I knew I needed it. They were there ready to help me in that moment. That moment of victory, when the business is running so smoothly for a client to be able to feel that, that's the win. And I think being able to spot that way ahead so that we're ready for it is going to be the fun part. It's more schooling, Michelle. We're going to learn every day for 10 years, I think.
I even think, and you said 10 years, my goodness, I can't even imagine 10 years. I even think in 5 years, and we're seeing it now, we are going to work in fundamentally different ways. I think, right now we're talking about me in the technology organization and Amy in an analytics and modeling and insight, a data science and analytics organization. Those roles are going to get completely collapsed and consolidated and blended. I think jobs are going to be so much more fluid in terms of each individual being part of the software development lifecycle. The jobs are going to be richer. The AI assistive experience is going to be amazing. We're already seeing some of that. And so because of the technology, I think roles themselves, and we spend a lot of time with the academy in the bank, actually redefining roles and building training curriculums and pathways, because the roles are going to get so much richer and broader, and our associates are going to get to spend so much more time with their clients because they're not doing some of this more menial or more rote or labor intensive low value work. They're going to have an assistive experience helping them with that work. We already see that work being done so much quicker. That's giving them time back. That time back is time back spending time with your teammates or spending time with your clients. I mean, that's to me the exciting part, is in some ways this technology combined with data, good data at its foundation as context for the interactions, is actually going to reconnect us in some ways. It's going to reconnect us to a human experience, because some of the rote work is going to be taken away from us. And that's kind of the world I'm excited about for my kids who are, 28 and 29 in the workforce. And in 10 years, their jobs are just going to be so much different. The workforce is going to be different. How we interact is different. And I think the lines between a technology organization and a business organization, we're going to be co-collaborating everywhere we are.
Stitching the silos back together. Well, I understand.
Right. It's a great way to say it.
I'm realizing that within that question, I basically asked you 10 years of reading and how much that's going to change. And that started. Well, it was great having you two here. Thank you for making the time. And we'll really like to have you back on the show.
Well, we appreciate it. And we appreciate all you do to educate and inform the community. You do a great job. And thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You're well said, Michelle. Thank you so much.